Hark and well met, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another stream. My name is RuneMeisterKris, and happy St. Patrick's Day to us all. We just got done playing our archaeology themed Pokemon ROM hack, Pokemon Gaia, right? So we had all of our archaeology Pokemon on that team, but I was thinking about it a little bit, and I was going through it, and I'm like, look, as fun as that was, and as great as the team was, and as representative of archaeology as we could get within that game, I feel like there was more to tap into on the archaeology and Pokemon side of things. I made a couple of lists here. I did homework. And what I did was I sat down and I thought about, realistically, which Pokemon would make for an objectively good team for an archaeologist to have. And I said, okay, well, this is what I think as an archaeologist you should have on your team to kind of cover all of the bases and help you do the job that you got to do. And yeah, I thought it'd be fun to go through them all. So here's what we're looking at here. I went through the criterion for looking at what we think we were going to need on a team built for an archaeologist. And here's what I'm thinking. Number one, obviously, you need someone to help you dig. As an archaeologist, our first and foremost job is doing field excavations, shovel tests, survey, yada yada. So you need to have somebody on your team who can help you do all the digging. Number two, we need somebody to help with lab work. So we need somebody with the cranium Canoe to help us out with the lab reports, and someone to help us out with artifact analysis, you know, things to help us with cleaning up the artifacts, getting them put together, like lined everything up, right? We need to have a flyer on the team because we need to have somebody who can fly us overhead so we can take aerial photographs. Because when you're doing archaeological survey, having a top-down view of where you're looking at is super important, right? Getting aerial photography of an archaeological site is one of the big things that I do when I'm doing background reports and everything. You know, you look at historic aerial maps, you look at modern aerial maps, topography maps, and things like that to get an idea of the lay of the land so that you can see whether or not there's going to be archaeological material in whatever place you're looking at. It makes sense. So having somebody on the team who can fly us around so that we can get a top-down look at what we're dealing with is pretty important, at least in my opinion. So after the flyer, we are also going to need, opposite side of the spectrum, somebody to run the water team. You know, we need somebody who can, as Amelia was hinting at, help out with water seething, help out with underwater archaeology, shipwrecks, things of that nature. This one and the flyer I had a very hard time with. The last guy who I felt was essential on the Pokemon archaeologist team is a ghost type Pokemon. I'm dead set on the fact that you need to have a ghost type Pokemon as an archaeologist, and I'm sticking to that. I'm sticking to that. Looking for someone to help you dig, somebody to help you fly, someone to help with water work, somebody to help with lab reports, and someone to help with artifact analysis, and a ghost. That's our 6-man team that we're looking at here. Without any further ado, let's go through the Pokemon who I think would be on this team. First up is the person to help us with excavation. This is obviously going to be a ground type or a rock type, or a steel type, and we're going to need somebody who can help us out with all of our excavation work. Now, the difficulty here is that you're not just looking for somebody who can dig the most or dig the best. So we're looking for somebody who can help us excavate in various levels. Sometimes we need to go down within centimeters. So we need somebody who has some fine dexterous work, but can also move tremendous amount of dirt. Because sometimes you want them to help you clear spoil piles or to get through particularly tough and hard surfaces. And I do have them picked out. This was tough. You'd go with Excadrill. So it's funny you say that. Excadrill is who we used on our team when we did our archaeology playthrough of Pokemon Gaia recently. We're sending in Drillbush. We're gonna Earthquake. This might be Mega. No, it's not. shoot. I was hoping that Drillbush would be faster. I know Lucario is speedy, but so is Excadrill. Survive this, you son of a bitch. Oh! Oh! Kill him. Oh, love to see that. Ugh. Drillbush, my unofficial starter. Excadrill is another one of my favorite Pokemon. I think Excadrill is an awesome member to the team. So I bet you're wondering why I went with Diggersby. He's kind of a doofus, right? Obviously inferior to Excadrill, who's got not just the typing benefit, but also just the utility, the speed. His stats are better, right? But we're not looking at this from a gameplay standpoint. We're looking at this from like a real life utility standpoint. And so here's what the deciding factor was for me. So looking at Excadrill, it says here it's not uncommon for tunnels that appear to have formed naturally to actually be the result of Excadrill's rampant digging. Rampant digging, super helpful. But in archaeology, you don't want to be rampant. This is a precise science, right? You need to have control. You need to know what you're doing. You can't just be digging rampantly. That doesn't help. Plus, mole holes digging through archaeological surveys are actually something that I encounter a lot, where I'll dig a shovel test and you'll see like a weird soil placement in the side of the profile wall, and you're going, what the heck is that? And it was an animal burrow that had been filled in with dirt that was out of context. Animals can cause artifacts within a soil profile to shift position, because as they dig, the soil will drop down. The artifact will drop through the soil to a lower or rise up to a higher level than it was normally, and it could skew your data. So animals like Excadrill are actually a little bit problematic in archaeology. Diggersby, on the other hand, with power equal to an excavator, it can dig through dense bedrock. It's a huge help during tunnel construction. It's an adult man. It is an employed individual. Diggersby is a union man, right? He follows instructions during tunnel construction, and he's still strong enough to dig through dense bedrock, right? Plus, on top of that, Diggersby has an extra set of hands because he's got his little front hands. He's got his little front pocket hands. So if he needs to do more finer work that his big old ears can't really handle because the big ears are too busy chonking up all the dirt, he could pull out his little tiny hands and help you with some troweling. Fur on the belly retains heat exceptionally well. People used to make heavy winter clothing from fur shed from this Pokemon. I didn't have room to fit a fire type to help you out in the winter. So Diggersby being beneficial during the winter is actually goated. Diggersby is the obvious choice for better objective utility on an archaeological site. As much as my heart belongs to Excadrill for just being a superior Pokemon in terms of the mechanics of the game, Diggersby is absolutely who I think that in real life or in the anime or something would be a better archaeological companion. Next up, we are going to look for somebody to help us out with the follow-up, the report writing, and all of the big brain things that we need helping out. In terms of writing the reports, getting all of the field data collected, making the analysis between the information that we're finding in the field and the broad collection of background research that we've done to complement it. And honestly, I brought this down to 2 Pokemon because I feel like I wanted to have multiple choice on this, but really there's only one answer, who can do the job of helping us out in the lab, conducting report writing and follow-up analysis, and that's Alakazam. Alakazam has one of the biggest brains. He's got the most wrinkles of any Pokemon in the lineup. And not only that, not only does he have incredibly high levels of intelligence, direct quote, he also has hands, which means that he can hold a pencil or type on a keyboard. 100% true. Alakazam is, I think, a fantastic choice for a lab employee. I think that he is going to be amazing with helping out the cleaning of artifacts. He can lift it up. He can just pull the dirt and the grime away, leaving the artifact there remaining, while also writing down notes. He remembers everything that happens to it. Alakazam is the choice for our archaeological lab assistant. Now, for the sake of letting you guys know, my backup was Slowking for the similar reason of high intelligence and hands. Next up, we have the flyer on the team. We're going to need somebody who can soar through the clouds, give us a keen aerial view of the ground below. And most importantly, and honestly, when I was making this list, the flyer was the one who I spent the most time on. And I'll tell you why. As the archaeologist, we would need to be in the air, or we would need to have eyes in the air, you know? So picking a lot of the flyers who would have been pretty good for stuff like this is going to be tough, because Pokemon, surprisingly, are not as big as you would imagine. For example, many of you who have played Pokemon Legends Arceus will realize that Machoke, our big bodybuilder boy, he's a short stock. I'm 6'2". I am up here on Machoke. Exactly. This is a freshman in high school who got on the wrestling team and just went way too hard first semester. But I do have a good plan for who my flyer would be. And I will admit, the big factor here was the size of the person, of the Pokemon that I'm getting at here. Which, by the way, speaking of size, did you guys realize Noctowl is over 5 feet tall? Noctowl is bigger than Machoke. And I know that the eyebrows count, but I mean, the Machoke is like still shorter than the actual Noctowl probably, which is just insane to me. Noctowl is way bigger than I thought it was. Noctowl is the Mothman. So among my list of potential flyers were Xatu, because Xatu does definitely kind of fit the theme. Aerodactyl. Aerodactyl was pretty much like when I thought about it, and we had Aerodactyl on our Pokemon Gaia run, right? My Aerodactyl is going to fly on you, ruin your afternoon, embarrass you in front of your wife that you just negged, and your family. But when Aerodactyl came up, I was like, oh, he's 5'11", he's pretty big, but he's still a little bit small, and I guarantee that includes part of the tail. I was like, but I'm going to put him on there just because it works really well. And I did not go with Aerodactyl. I looked at Flygon, 6'7", great choice in terms of size, and a ground type and a dragon. Flygon was a big contender, but it's not who I went with. Sigilyph. Is it Sigilyph, or I think it's supposed to be Sigilyph, because it's like you're saying glyph. It's weird because it's like, oh, is it sigil or is it glyph? And I think it's Sigilyph. That's how I always say it. Yeah, whatever. Sigilyph, however you want to say it. He did not make it onto the team. The flyer who I ended up picking was the actual biggest flyer, who kind of sort of fits the theme, Corviknight. The dude is 7 feet tall. Corviknight is actually the only non-legendary flyer that's like bigger than me, or bigger than like your average person. They are taxis and Sword Shield. He's got the whole medieval knight thing, which is pretty dope. He is just a big honkin' burb, you're right. Corviknight is a great option for carrying an archaeologist with a camera who wants to take aerial photography of a region. That's the choice there. And I think it's a good one. Next up is going to be our water type. The water type Pokemon was an interesting choice. I had a couple different options, and this one was another one that gave me a lot of pause, because what I was looking for in a water type Pokemon was one who could handle both deep depths and also land. So a lot of Pokemon that were initially on my list, a big one that I had right off the bat was Lantern, because I thought that with the light, if you attached like a camera to Lantern and had them do like a sub dive, the light would help kind of light up what you're looking at. And so I think that would have been a good option. But I was looking for something that could also handle land. Inteleon was a choice. The Squirtle line did come up. The Poly line was a good one as well. But, you know, frogs like that, you don't find frogs in deep sea. I settled on Caracosta. It can go on land, but it's a rock type, so it can handle really deep depths. The pressures of being in the deep ocean, handling shipwrecks, is not too much for Caracosta. It's super tough. Having the extra defenses on its shell would help out, And the fact that it can go on land means that you can bust it out when you're not dealing with underwater archaeology. And you could do like water guns and stuff to kind of keep everybody on the team hydrated. Also, it was a fossil type Pokemon. So having a fossil type Pokemon on the archaeology team like fit a little bit well. Fossil is cool. I think that the fossil for the archaeology team, that was a big factor in deciding Carracosta over Blastoise. Although I'll be honest, you know what? I mean, I'll say it. I'm biased. I am not a fan of the Blastoise line. It's just not. It was never my favorite. It was before Steel types came out and it had cannons in its back. And I was like, why on earth was it like that? It made no damn sense. So next up, we are looking at a ghost type Pokemon. The ghost type Pokemon is one that I feel like needs to be on the archaeological team for the sole reason that they can tell you about the things that happened in the past. And now there's a lot of ghost type Pokemon, right? And a lot of varied ones. And a lot of ones that are very unique to each of their regions. And that's why I made a pretty controversial take on this. So I was looking through and initially I was like, oh, I mean, like the obvious choice here would be to go with somebody like Cofagrius / RuneMeisterKris. Especially for me as RuneMeisterKris, going with RuneMeisterKris would make sense. Cofagrius is definitely an option. I mean, it's literally a mummy. It's literally a sarcophagus. But here's the thing. People say it no longer remembers that it was once human. It can't tell us anything about the past. But I'll tell you what I did decide. And I think that this is a cop-out, but I think that it's an acceptable cop-out. So I think that the best ghost-type Pokemon for an archaeologist to have is whatever ghost type is endemic to the region that that archaeologist specializes in. If you're going to be in Johto, you're going to want a Mischievous, because Mischievous is going to be able to tell you about the things that happened in that region. Or here, even like Kanto, you know, you're going to look at the Gengar line because I mean, like they had an episode about that where like the Ghastly was like an old lady who was, you know, it was like an old story for the region was that person, the lady was waiting for the husband to return. The husband came back as a Ghastly and haunted everybody at that festival, right?
Ghastly, a ghost Pokemon. It is usually invisible. Its specialty is hypnosis.
Ghastly? You're really a Pokemon? So you finally figured it out. Sometimes I'm the ghost of the 2,000-year-old maybe.
So these Pokemon are going to be able to tell you about the events of the past within their specific region. But having a Ghastly from Kanto isn't going to help you if you suddenly end up in, you know, Sinnoh. It's not going to tell you anything about that region because it's not from there. No, I mean, granted, there are Pokemon that, you know, are endemic to those regions. You know, Ghastly appear in other games. You know, Duskulls are down here, but they're also in Galar. And that's fine as long as you're catching one from that region, you know? So I think that the ghost type Pokemon that needs to be on the team should really depend on where you're working as an archaeologist. But that is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say the ghost type is any, whatever one you can get for the region that you're in. I think that that's the most important thing. So for number 6, initially I wrote down other. And I meant other to be just kind of a generic category. The other, I think, is where I'll just stick the thematic Pokemon, like something like Unown, right? Or Claydol, or Bronzong. Pokemon that are undeniably archaeological in nature, but who don't necessarily add anything to the team that isn't being already covered up. So I wanted to pick somebody to fit that 6th slot who could do something that we would need on a team of archaeology, even if it didn't necessarily fit any of the traditional roles. And that's why I went with the following. Smeargle. And the reason I picked Smeargle is twofold. Number 1, Smeargle can help literally with report writing because he's got a pen for a tail and can write with it. Number 2, and perhaps probably more usefully, before the advent of a much more technological approach to archaeology, there is a practice which is still done by a lot of people. My wife was particularly great at this when she was doing archaeology more regularly, and we've worked with other people who specialized on this, was site illustration. In instances where you can't always get great pictures, or times where you want to annotate things more than can be illustrated in just a photograph, you'll want to complete site plans, site illustrations, drawings, pictures, illustrations that show what the archaeological site that you're working on looks like. The different layers, pinpointing out, drawing little markers to indicate what artifacts are found at what locations, and where you think all of that fits in the grand scheme of the archaeological site that you're excavating. Smeargle can do that. And you can tell that I'm being objective about this because Smeargle is just actual doo-doo butter. I'm gonna get somebody in the comments who comes in and complains about my Smeargle hating here, but I'd like, actually, he does nothing. Like there are so many, every game that Smeargle's in, they throw in like an artist NPC who has a Smeargle, and they just get trounced. Like, it doesn't do anything. But I think that Smeargle, out of combat, on a team of research archaeologists, would actually factually be helpful. So that's why I included him on the team. Not a conventional choice that you would imagine. And this team in general is maybe not the most conventional team that you would expect an archaeologist to have. But I think that that is probably the most objectively useful Pokemon team. So guys, when it comes down to looking at what entails an archaeological Pokemon lineup, you need to look at it from a scientific standpoint, which is what we did today. You know, we were looking for somebody to fit every role that you would need on the job site and in the lab as an archaeologist. And while it took a bit of wrestling to get some of those slots filled, and while we were reaching a little bit, I think in some places, I think ultimately the list that we came up with in terms of the 6 most useful Pokemon to an archaeologist, I think that an archaeologist could see where I'm coming from. So from here, the question is, do I do a playthrough with this team? Do I do a playthrough with this team of Diggersby, Alakazam, Corviknight, Caracosta, Cofagrius, and Smeargle? Because I think it could be good. I mean, we have good type coverages, right? Ground type here, Psychic type here, Steel and Flying, Water, Rock, Ghost, and Smeargle can kind of do whatever he wants to do. I think this would be fun. So anyway, guys, yeah, that's who I think would make the best archaeology-based Pokemon teams. I do like the idea of running our final lineup of Diggersby, Alakazam, Corviknight, Caracosta, Cofagrius / Runerigus, and Smeargle. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think that just works out. That's just where the team is. So, I mean, yeah, tell me if you disagree, if you guys think that I made a wrong choice. If any archaeologists see this video, let me know if there's any Pokemon that you feel strongly about having on your team.